Hello everyone, I'm Autobot Sonic the Telltale Gamer, being latest on Telltale Games, Transformers, and more. So today is a video that I've been wanting to make for about a good month to 2 months now, and I just haven't gotten the time to make it until now, and considering we're about 1 week away from its release, I don't think any better time to talk about it. We are finally beginning doing an everything you need to know about video for new Tales from the Borderlands, aka Tales from the Borderlands Season 2. So, for any of you who don't know, next week on October 21st, 2022, Gearbox will be releasing a spin-off slash sequel to Tales from the Borderlands 1 called New Tales from the Borderlands. So before we go any further, I just want to get this out of the way. First off, New Tales from the Borderlands is not a direct sequel to Tales from the Borderlands 1. It will not continue the story of Rhys and Fiona, basically explain what happened to them after they went to the Vault of Traveler and disappeared at the end of episode 5. That story will not be touched, unfortunately. Well, it might be, but it's not the focus of New Tales from the Borderlands. New Tales from the Borderlands is a brand new story that has been written by Gearbox and actually former Telltale employees. So, basically, here's the lowdown on New Tales from the Borderlands. The game is being developed by Gearbox internally. However, during an announcement of New Tales from the Borderlands at PAX 2022, Randy Pitchford of Gearbox confirmed that they actually got former Telltale writers from Tales from the Borderlands 1 to write New Tales from the Borderlands. So for anyone who was worried that, oh, this game is going to suck because it's not written by Telltale, well there, it's written by Telltale, so you can't make that excuse anymore. I mean, it may not be a good story, but you can't just say, oh, because it's not written by Telltale, it's not going to be a good story. I know Telltale's track record is mixed. Some people, Game of Thrones, a Telltale series, Walking Dead, New Frontier, some stuff like that. But still, I'm hopeful for New Tales from the Borderlands. I think it's going to be a really fun game with all these brand new characters we're going to fall in love with and add to the Borderlands mythos. So I'm here going to basically go over everything we know about the story. I'm not going to go too much over trailers, just breaking them down bit by bit, because I think that kind of takes away from it. Maybe if I did this a while back, I would, but consider about a week away from the release of New Tales from the Borderlands, I'm just going to avoid that. So what we're going to be talking about instead is pretty much basically an overview of what the game is going to be about, who are 3 main characters in Tales from the Borderlands, as well as the supporting cast, and basically how it differs and compares to the original Tales from the Borderlands. So if you're excited as I am, be sure to like, comment, and of course subscribe. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Okay, so we're going to start off today's video talking basically about what is the general plot of New Tales from the Borderlands. So for anyone who does not know yet, New Tales from the Borderlands is a spin-off of the Borderlands franchise. Even though it's called New Tales from the Borderlands, it's not necessarily a direct sequel to Tales from the Borderlands 1. It's in the Borderlands franchise, and it plays like Tales from the Borderlands 1, but for the most part is pretty much its own brand new story. New Tales from the Borderlands takes place roughly 1 year after the events of Borderlands 3, making it the most recent game in the Borderlands timeline. So for any of you keeping track on your Borderlands timelines, we start at Borderlands 1, after that is Borderlands the pre-sequel, or the past segments of Borderlands the pre-sequel, then Borderlands 2, then roughly we can put Tiny Tina's Wonderland sometime after the events of Borderlands 2, but before the Commander Lilith DLC. Then we have Tales from the Borderlands Season 1, the main part of the story, the flashbacks of Tales from the Borderlands 1, up until Episode 3. Then after Episode 3 happens, we cut back to the present-day storyline of Borderlands the pre-sequel. After that, we cut to Episodes 4 and 5 of Tales from the Borderlands 1, including the future storyline of Tales from the Borderlands 1, which takes place roughly about 2 to 3 years after the events of Borderlands 2. Then we have then we have Borderlands 2 Commander Lilith DLC, which takes place roughly, I believe, 2 years or so before the events of Borderlands 3. Then we have Borderlands 3, and now finally New Tales in the Borderlands, which takes place 1 year after the events of Borderlands 3. So New Tales in the Borderlands is special in the fact that it actually does not take place on Pandora. This is the second Borderlands game in general that does not take place on Pandora. Technically third if you count Wonderlands, but since Wonderlands, it's Tina, Valentine, and Fret, and the player all playing Bunkers Madness at Tina's house on Pandora, even though they're in the Wonderlands technically. I'll count that as it's just like not counting that. So Borderlands 1, Pandora. Borderlands the pre-sequel took place on Elpis. Borderlands 2, Pandora. New Tales from the Borderlands, or just Tales from Borderlands 1, Pandora. Borderlands 3 takes place partly on Pandora, but also Promethea, Eden 6, and a lot of other planets. New Tales from the Borderlands, however, takes place instead on Promethea, the Atlas homeworld, where you meet Rhys, Zero, and a bunch of other characters in Borderlands 3. So, as far as we know, New Tales of Borderlands will take place entirely on Promethea, which is really crazy to think that this will be the first ever Borderlands game since Borderlands the pre-sequel, so almost 10 years since we got a Borderlands game that doesn't take place on Pandora at all. I mean, technically, Borderlands pre-sequel sort of did, but only through cutscenes, like the intro and ending take place on Pandora, but other than that, the rest of the game takes place on Elpis. So, New Tales from the Borderlands takes place roughly 1 year after the events of Borderlands 3, where you play as brother and sister duo Anu and Octavio, and a Frogger businesswoman named Fran, who are apparently under siege when Promethea is under attack by Tdor. And of course, if you know Tdor, Tdor is the weapon manufacturer in the Borderlands franchise, who before Atlas was actually my favorite gun manufacturer in the Borderlands franchise. In Borderlands 2 and 3, I absolutely loved Tdor guns, how they always had the gimmick where instead of reloading the guns, you just throw the guns away and they explode doing damage, acting like a grenade. And if you only like shot off one bullet and then throw the gun away, it does more damage. I absolutely love Tdor guns. So to see that Tdor are going to be the main antagonists of New Tales in the Borderlands, that's so cool that we're finally going to learn more about Tdor, because it's always been so cool to learn more about each gun company in the Borderlands universe as the games have gone on. Like in Borderlands 1, Atlas was the main bad guy, and then of course we take down Atlas in the General Knox DLC until Rhys rebuilds it at the end of Tales of Borderlands 1, and then it's a big faction again in Borderlands 3. But it makes sense, but it's odd because it's actually one of the few good companies in the Borderlands universe alongside Torg and Jacobs. Then in Borderlands 2 and Tales of Borderlands 1, of course, we had Hyperion with Handsome Jack as the main antagonist. And Hyperion, of course, they had their guns being all about precision, accuracy, and stuff like that. In Borderlands the pre-sequel, we had Dahl, the more militarized company, the ones that were kind of just like your all-around gun company, where they didn't really make any like guns that were like great and everything, just sort of made all well-rounded guns. Then in Borderlands 3 was sort of an outlier where we had the Children of the Vault, a bandit group, as our main antagonist. But then, of course, in the side story featuring Rhys and Katagawa, Malawan was actually the main antagonist of that story. And, of course, Malawan are the ones who make all the elemental guns. Also in Borderlands 3, we've also, of course, learned more about the Jacobs Corporation through its founder, Wainwright Jacobs, who ends up marrying Sir Hammerlock by the end of the game, and, of course, had their own DLC pack in Borderlands 3 because of it. I also totally forgot to mention, in Borderlands 2, as well as Borderlands 3 and Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, we also got to meet the head of Torg, Mr. Torg, who, of course, treats basically everything like a Michael Bay movie, so, which makes sense considering the whole gimmick with Torg guns is that they all have explosive damage attached to them. So, the fact that we're actually getting more info on Tdor, which are known for being really cheap guns and rather weak, but the fact that you can reload them, they have the fastest reload of any gun in the Borderlands universe just by the fact that you throw them away, it's really cool. So, when Tdor finds a vault on Promethea, Fran, Octavio, and Anu are all thrown together to try and stop Tdor, but also each of them has their own goals that they hope to achieve with this vault. With Anu, she hopes to create a world where conflicts can be solved peacefully and basically be an overall good person. Octavio hopes to become like the most famous person in the Borderlands universe with all the money and fame he'll get from finding the vault. And then Fran just wants to do it to get back at Tdor and Malawan, actually, from ruining her Frogurt store. And more on Fran later, because actually Fran is a character that's, funnily enough, already existed in the Borderlands franchise, but not in the way you think she might be. We'll get back to her later, though. So we're going to go ahead and go through these three characters' bios, as well as the supporting cast of New Tales in the Borderlands, as well as even some other characters that show up in a few trailers of New Tales in the Borderlands, but not go into too much detail on them. Alright, so let's start off our list of all the characters, or the main characters, I should say, of New Tales in the Borderlands, with arguably our first main character, who I assume is most likely like the most main character of them all, and that is Anu. So Anu is, of course, I assume she's probably going to be the first character we play as in New Tales in the Borderlands. She is an Atlas scientist who is actually the right-hand woman of Rhys. So, of course, it's very cool how they're doing this, how in Tales of the Borderlands 1, we played as Rhys, who was a underling of Handsome Jack, and of course, his boss, Vasquez, he was sort of the right-hand man of Vasquez until he got demoted by him. So, to see Anu be sort of in that position where she basically worships Rhys. She loves him, she thinks like he's the coolest person ever, and to see her in basically the same position Rhys was in all the way back in Tales of the Borderlands 1, I always see like the parallels between Anu and Rhys, where maybe Anu is a bit more eccentric than Rhys. She's like more, I'd say, maybe say Anu's a bit more outgoing than Rhys maybe was in Tales of Borderlands 1. It's gonna be interesting to see like how much of like Anu, how much of Rhys sees in Anu, which is gonna be really cool to see. But let's go ahead and read Anu's bio so we can get a little bit more info about her. Dr. Tdor is an enthusiastic but tense genius who abhors violence and killing. Despite being prone to panic attacks when things get hectic, honestly same, Anu always trusts in the power of science to somehow make it all better. Did we mention she works for Atlas? Well, you know what they say, if you can't beat them, join the company and try to make positive change internally. So of course, as we stated back in the beginning of this video, Anu's dream with finding this vault is that hopefully she can use the technology or whatever is inside the vault to create a world where conflicts can be resolved peacefully, where she can just create just perfect, everlasting peace in the Borderlands franchise, which, will it happen in the Borderlands franchise? Will she get what she wants? I'm not exactly sure. She's kind of being too optimistic for a world totally run by guns and super corrupt corporations, with like Rhys and Atlas being like the sole exception. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm really excited for Anu's character, and I'm eager to see what stuff like she'll have, like what connection she'll have with Rhys, who we also know is going to be playing a role, maybe if not just a very minor one, in New Tales of the Borderlands. Also, for any who are wondering the status of who will be voicing Rhys in New Tales of the Borderlands, I can happily confirm that Rhys will be voiced by Ray Chase, aka who voiced him in Borderlands 3. Unfortunately, Troy Baker will not be returning to voice Rhys in New Tales of the Borderlands, just like he didn't in Borderlands 3. But honestly, I don't care about this. I absolutely loved Ray Chase's performance as Rhys in Borderlands 3. And fun fact, I actually got to meet him at New York Comic Con just last week, and he was such a cool dude. I got him to sign a bunch of stuff, including my own copy of The Walking Dead: The Final Season, because for any who don't know, he was the voice of Marlon. I got him to sign a copy of Demon Slayer Hinokami Chronicles, because he voices Tengen Uzui in that. I would have gotten him to voice, to sign my copy of JoJo All-Star Battle Remastered if I had one, since he's the voice of Bucciarati in that. And if I had a physical copy of Borderlands 3, I totally would have had him sign that as well. But yeah, I just told him, like, he's been overjoyed to see how many people love him as Rhys, and I'm so excited to see how Ray Chase does as Rhys in New Tales of the Borderlands. From Anu, we move on to her brother Octavio, who, if Anu's more so the Rhys of New Tales in the Borderlands, I can assume Octavio is most likely going to be the Fiona of New Tales in the Borderlands. If not, he's going to be a bit more immature and a lot more outlandish than Fiona, which it's interesting to see how Anu's going to be a lot more good-natured and more sure of herself compared to Rhys's more timidness, and Octavio's going to be a lot more stupid but also more daring than Fiona was in Tales of the Borderlands. So kind of like Octavio is Fiona taken up to 11, and then Anu honestly is sort of Rhys but toned down a bit. So it's going to be, we have Anu as sort of like the anti-Rhys, and then Octavio as like the super Fiona, which is going to be really interesting. But let's go ahead and read Octavio's bio just to get a little bit better idea about him. Octavio Wallace Tdor leaves the book smarts to his older sister Anu. Everything he needs to know was picked up on the Promethean streets. Always one to leave a lasting impression, Octavio is his own hype man, complete with a state-of-the-art Echo Dex full of black market apps and hack-ready functionality. Octavio may not always make the best decisions or even kind of passable ones, but his heart is usually in the right place. So it's interesting to see that Octavio isn't in this for totally selfish reasons, because the way it's several trailers and the official summary of New Tales of Borderlands implied it, that was leaked months ago in the summer, it seemed to imply that Octavio's big dream is to become the most famous person in the Borderlands by getting this vault. And while that may be his overall endgame though, it's still apparent that he does care a lot about his sister Anu, and that he's not just willing to forsake her just to achieve his own goals. It seems as though he still very much cares about her and wants to see like them both succeed to a degree, which is interesting compared to how we had Rhys and Fiona in Tales of Borderlands 1, where they're just strangers until they met each other. Now we have an established relationship already with Anu and Octavio being brothers, so it'll be cool to see how they bounce off one each other compared to Rhys and Fiona. But of course, they'll want to just bounce off each other, but also they're the third major character who we're going to get into right now. So in Tales of the Borderlands 1, we just played between Rhys and Fiona. In New Tales of the Borderlands though, we're playing as not just one, not just two, but actually 3 characters. Not only are we playing as Anu and Octavio, but a third character named Fran, who honestly, I think, even though I'm Team Anu, I think Fran may just be my favorite character of the 3 in New Tales of the Borderlands. So let's go ahead and read her bio. Fran Mitzkowitz is mad. You'd be mad too if some Malawan jackhole shot a laser through your small business. So yeah, Fran's got a bone to pick and some Shanger issues to sort out, but doesn't mean she isn't without sweetness, charm, or a real lust for life. Fran contains multitudes, as does her trusty hover chair, which is chock full of useful gadgets for both work and survival situations. On Promethea, the two often go hand in hand. So this is something we see a lot of throughout several trailers and gameplay snippets that have been released over the past few months of New Tales of the Borderlands, is that Fran is bound to this hover chair for presumably the entirety of New Tales of the Borderlands. I don't know if she is canonically crippled, so that basically this is sort of like a glorified wheelchair, or if it's just because of her weight or something that she just prefers to move around through this hover chair. Again, no problem with that if that is the case. I honestly love Fran's character, to have her just roll around in this hover chair the whole time. But again, like, it's if she is like disabled to a degree, that's cool that we're actually like getting more disability representation throughout the Borderlands franchise, which is cool because the Borderlands franchise has always been really cool, like being very inclusive with its characters. We've had several like LGBT and just characters from all different walks of life be represented in the Borderlands franchise, which I think is really, really cool to see Fran do that. But what if I told you, though, Fran wasn't a character created for New Tales from the Borderlands? What if she was a character that existed for quite a few years in the Borderlands franchise already? So, in case you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to go ahead and play a certain echolog that plays between Rhys and Katagawa that played 3 years ago back in Borderlands 3. So, let's go ahead and listen to that right now, shall we?
You just won't give up, will you, Rhys? That's it. Say goodbye to your favorite Frogurt stand.
Not Fran's Frogurts. Anything but Fran's Frogurts. I mean, they give you that... Fresh fruit on the bottom of the cup. Good! If we don't stop Katagawa's laser, he's gonna turn Atlas HQ into a duplex. And CEOs do not live in duplexes. Maybe Tdor CEO does. I mean, those guns are garbage with the trigger, right? Burn! I'm still sad about that. But the fate of the entire planet is at stake. We can mourn later.
So yeah, you did not mishear that right. Fran was alluded to all the way back in Borderlands 3. It was her Frogurt store that Katagawa blew up with a laser beam while Rhys worked with the Borderlands 3 Vault Hunters to try and take down his laser cannon. So, the fact that they took that, they literally, I doubt when Gearbox wrote that joke in Borderlands 3 that they really designed to make Fran a big character like this, but the fact that they just went ahead and used that throwaway line from Borderlands 3 and made a whole character out of it, I think that's just an incredible part on Telltale and Gearbox's parts to just go ahead and create this amazing character. I absolutely love her design, I love her personality and all of that. And I'm really tempted, again, I'm torn between having Fran or Anu, like, working towards get their endings, because, just in case you don't know, Gearbox confirmed that New Tales of the Borderlands will be 5 episodes long, and all 5 episodes will be released at once next Friday, October 21st. In addition to that, there will be 5 different endings you can get in New Tales in the Borderlands, and while your choices from Tales of Borderlands 1 won't carry over to this game, it is cool to see, though, that pretty much there's gonna be, like, I hope those 5 endings are vastly different. I don't think they're gonna, like, change the world of Borderlands dramatically, but I think that it will be cool to see maybe if, granted, if Anu, Octavio, and Fran don't die in New Tales in the Borderlands, or, like, if it's not too determinant, maybe there's a chance we can see them in Borderlands 4 or Tales in the Borderlands 3 or something like that. Because I'm really loving all 3 of these characters, some more than others. I mean, I love Anu. She's arguably my favorite, but I really, really like Fran's personality too. Octavio just, I mean, I think he's a cool guy, but he's just not my favorite, honestly. But, yeah, that pretty much does it for all 3 of our main characters, Anu, Octavio, and Fran. Let's go ahead now and go into the supporting cast of New Tales in the Borderlands, and the first one I'm very excited to talk about. So the first supporting character on our cast, who may actually you can consider to be the 4th main character of New Tales in the Borderlands is LOU13 or Louis. So Louis to me seems like he's going to be the loader bot of this game. He is actually the robot we've seen on the cover of New Tales in the Borderlands, which seems to imply that he will actually be a very big character in this game. So let's go ahead and read Louis' bio right now. An eloquent assassination bot with instant access to a database of known targets, LOU13 is not without manners. For instance, he'd never kill you before learning your name. Programmed for a life of calculated murder, Louis aspires to be more. This dapper killing machine wants to give humanity the gift of laughter and is pursuing a side career in comedy. Fascinated by the group's dynamics between Anu, Octavio, and Fran, Louis is happy to track the strength of their ever-evolving bonds via a rather unconventional rating system. So, Gearbox has sort of, like, explained this in interviews with a few other gaming news outlets. So apparently the way Louis is going to work in New Tales of Borderlands is that he's essentially going to be the game's very own in-game stat tracker or relationship tracker, where essentially in, you know, where in normal Telltale games you have like a, oh, X will remember this, or you chose to do this, and at the end of every game, every episode it would say, oh, you and whatever percent of players did this, you and whatever percent of players did that. So Louis is just going to be keeping track of pretty much everything you do throughout the game, and he'll comment on whether or not some characters will like what you do, some characters won't like what you do. So I think that's cool that Gearbox is taking a sort of, creating a in-game version of their relationship tracker that Telltale's used in a bunch of other games. And I'm eager to see what Louis will bring to, like, this community, this trio of Anu, Octavio, and Fran, if he's going to be playing the fourth ranger in their group, where he's maybe going to be bailing them out of some situations and just judging them based on how they go interact. It's going to be cool to see. I'm really excited to meet Louis. I'm a sucker for killer robot characters, so you know I'm going to be all over Louis when this game comes out. Now we've got Louis out of the way, let's go ahead and move on to who is arguably most likely going to be our main antagonist of New Tales in the Borderlands. So in Tales in the Borderlands 1, our main antagonist was kind of like, we kind of fluctuated. Like, it started out with Vasquez being the main antagonist for the first 3 episodes, then it sort of shifted to Valerie for episodes 3 through 5. But also, at the same time, Handsome Jack was kind of like, it was kind of a mix between Valerie and Handsome Jack as the main antagonist. And then they both sort of died at the end of the flashback storyline, and then the Traveler just sort of acted as the main antagonist for the last leg of episode 5. So it's interesting that in New Tales in Borderlands, it seems as though our main antagonist will be one singular force for the majority of the game, hopefully, and that is Susan Colwell, aka the CEO of Tdor. And this is huge because, to my knowledge at least, we've never known who the CEO of Tdor was before this game. Of course, as I said before, we know the CEOs of many other companies throughout the franchise. Of course, we had General Knox who was the first CEO of Atlas in Borderlands 1. He died at the end of the General Knox DLC, and then Atlas just fell apart until Rhys brought it back in Tales of Borderlands 1 and Borderlands 3. So now Rhys is the head of Atlas. We had Handsome Jack as head of Hyperion in Borderlands the pre-sequel and Borderlands 2, but then he died, and I'm not exactly sure who's running Hyperion in Borderlands 2. If anyone wants to comment on who the new head of Hyperion is, feel free to leave that in the below, but I'm not exactly sure. We know Wainwright is the head of Jacobs in Borderlands 3. We know Mr. Torg is the head of Torg, as we learned back in Borderlands 2. We know, I'm not sure if Katagawa was the head of Malawan in Borderlands 3, or he was just like one of the higher-ups in Malawan. I don't think he was the head of Malawan, but was just a higher-up. Oh no, he might have actually been the CEO of Malawan, considering that he wanted to take over Atlas and then merge it with Malawan. So he could have been head of Malawan, but then with him dying halfway through Borderlands 3, Malawan's just under new management. Really and now we have, of course, Susan Colwell as head of Tdor. I forgot to mention also the main antagonist of Borderlands, the pre-sequel, was the head of Doll. I forgot her name though, but I just know, I remember vaguely what her appearance looked like. So yeah, the only like factions that we don't know of yet, like the leader is really Vladoff, who of course we know Mose in Borderlands 3 was a former Vladoff operator. And really Vladoff is really the only one I can think of that we still don't know who the head of it was. But other than that, it's cool that we now have the head of Tdor in the form of Susan Colwell. So let's go ahead and read her bio. Susan Colwell didn't become the CEO of Tdor Weapons Corps by being nice or playing fair. If you're going to break the glass ceiling, you might as well cut a few throats with the pieces. That's just smart, economic Tdor brand thinking. Now she's at the top, she's investing in a business plan that will shake up the weapons industry. Why sell weapons to the common man when you can weaponize the common man instead? So of course this is a reference to how Tdor, basically that's their whole shtick, that Tdor's guns are the weakest statistically and therefore the cheapest in the Borderlands franchise, but they have the special status of being the fastest reload of all the Borderlands guns by just literally throwing them away and using them like grenades. And of course Borderlands 3 took this up to 11 by giving them crazy different abilities, like either making them talking guns, which we do see in one of the Tales of the Borderlands 2 trailers, by the way, which I'm really excited to see. They have talking guns, they have guns that turn into turrets when you throw them away. We have guns that like grow legs and start chasing after people to explode as like homing bombs. Tdor's guns in Borderlands 2 were amazing. Those and the Atlas guns were probably my favorite. I love the Atlas guns, how they sort of had smart bullets that you shot with one bullet and then you could just lock on the rest of your bullets like a smart gun from Titanfall or Cyberpunk, which I'm really excited about. So yeah, I'm really interested in seeing Susan as the main antagonist of Borderlands, of New Tales from the Borderlands, especially loving the designs of all the Tdor soldiers. I love how blocky they are, very resembling the blocky nature of Tdor guns. I'm just so excited for that. From Susan, we move on to a character named, I believe it is pronounced Fran. Now, I'm super sorry if I'm butchering this, but to me, I'm pretty sure her name is Fran, and she appears to be Anu's best friend, so she's going to be filling out the Vaughn/Yvette role of New Tales in the Borderlands, where if Anu's the Rhys of New Tales in the Borderlands, Fran can be considered the Vaughn/Yvette. So let's go ahead and read her bio. As a research assistant of Atlas, Fran's primary responsibility is to keep Anu grounded and focused. Other responsibilities include talking to test subjects, cataloging rare ores, and keeping tabs on the hot company gossip. After a long day helping Anu invent world-changing technology, Fran loves to kick back with pals and play Vaultlanders. Now, of course, you don't remember when I talked about New Tales from Borderlands months ago when the original plot summary for the game got leaked. In the deluxe edition summary for the game, it stated that if you pre-order New Tales from Borderlands, you get what is called a Flak Vaultlander collectible, and of course Flak being one of the 4 Vault Hunters from Borderlands 3. So through trailers and gameplay snippets we got of New Tales from Borderlands, we now know what Vaultlanders is, and that is a mini-game that you will play repeatedly throughout the course of New Tales from the Borderlands. And essentially what Vaultlanders is you collect these action figures of various characters throughout the Borderlands franchise. From ones I've seen in gameplay snippets, you can get characters like Fran herself as a Vaultlander. You can get a bunch of Borderlands 3 characters like Amara, Zane, Flak. You can even get Tales of the Borderlands 1 characters. I'm pretty sure there's a Vasquez Vaultlander and an August Vaultlander that you can collect. Not sure if August is going to show up in New Tales of the Borderlands, but I really hope he does. So, and each one has its own unique special abilities. Like Amara's Vaultlander can use her, like, Siren Fist as like a little aura barrage like Star Platinum and JoJo. I'm pretty sure the Zane Vaultlander can actually teleport and like disappear like Zane does in Borderlands 3. So it's cool to see that they're doing that. Gearbox is starting like making these cool little mini games in it. So apparently, if you pre-order New Tales of Borderlands, you get the Flak Vaultlander in game, which is gonna be really cool. As Flak was one of my favorite characters in Borderlands 3, even though Mose was my main in Borderlands 3. I absolutely loved Flak too. They were a really fun character, and I loved just seeing them interact with all the other characters as well. So to see how Vaultlanders and Fran are gonna play into New Tales of Borderlands, I'm excited to find out. Now, the last 2 characters we have here in New Tales from the Borderlands, rounding out the supporting cast, are rather minor characters, but I still think they're important to talk about nonetheless. So first here is Timmy, which I think is hilarious. And so Timmy here is Rhys's personal assistant robot. So unfortunately, it doesn't seem like Loaderbot stuck around to stay as Rhys's personal assistant, as he wasn't in Borderlands 3 at all. But instead, Rhys seems to have this new bot called Timmy, which I'm really excited to learn about him. Let's go ahead and read Timmy's bio. Timmy is imbued with a sense of divine purpose, to assist Rhys Strongfork, the CEO of Atlas, with any and all of his needs. Whether it means managing his calendar or turning into a chair to cushion Mr. Strongfork's behind, no request is too big or too small. So I think Timmy is going to be a rather minor character throughout New Tales in the Borderlands, but again, just having like someone like be this sentient robot/chair that acts as like a personal guide or a personal assistant to Rhys, I think that's just honestly hilarious. I'm excited to see what Timmy brings to New Tales in the Borderlands. And then our final character is another robot character called the Sponsor Bot, and this is essentially sort of Fran's personal assistant/trainer, and they are apparently a therapist/personal trainer that Fran carries around as like a little like stopwatch, as we can even see like in her in her, like, Branger right here, we can see, like, even though it's covered for the most part, you can see she's holding the sponsor bot in her left hand here. So let's go ahead and read the sponsor bot's bio. Part life coach, part spiritual guru, part legally mandated companion, sponsor bot helpfully reminds Fran to take a breath, calm her nerves, and avoid smashing the skulls of those in nearest proximity. So yeah, I don't think there's gonna be a lot with sponsor bot. I think they're just gonna be a funny, like, throwaway character that just acts as, like, a therapist to calm down Fran when she goes into a murderous rampage. And it's gonna be really funny to see how they interact with Fran, and maybe also Anu, Octavio, and Louis as well. Alright, the final thing I want to talk about with New Tales in the Borderlands here is this character trailer, where essentially we get to see a lot more of the side characters, and actually returning characters from previous Borderlands games that are going to be playing minor and potentially major roles in New Tales in the Borderlands. So alongside the characters talked about before, like Anu, Fran, Octavio, Louis, and Susan Colwell, and all of them, we get a ton more characters here. Some blink and you miss it, some that are actually pretty hidden. What I want to talk about first here is actually in Octavio's section of this trailer, where we see him talking about, I know I said I'm not going to talk a lot about these trailers, but this is just something I feel like I can't miss out on. So basically, Octavio is talking to Louis, explaining what his dream is, and that is to get on Forge's Dirty 30 list, which is pretty much a parody of Forbes 30 under 30 list, which is basically like an article list that Forbes magazine puts out every year, basically saying like the 30 most important people, 30 most successful people of the year who are under the age of 30. So that's pretty much what Octavio wants to get on here. So as we see him go through the covers of all the different Forge articles, we see a lot of returning and new characters throughout these articles. In the first one here, we see the first two that Octavio goes through are actually of Rhys. On this first note, we have of Forge's super successful Dirty 30. We see this really hilarious poster of Rhys posing with like these 3D glasses that look very similar to Vaughn's glasses actually on him, still wearing his siege mustache from Borderlands 3, even though you could have shaved it off at the end of Borderlands 3, so maybe he just grew it back, that he ended up liking it. Or maybe that'll be a choice at the start of New Tales, when it's like, oh, did you tell Rhys to shave his mustache or not at the end of Borderlands 3? Or maybe he just keeps it anyway. Regardless or not, I actually love Rhys's mustache, so keep it. And then, of course, we have another one of Rhys saying, Atlas CEO, Promethean hero, the man behind Atlas. Another one, though, that's really interesting, it's what comes after Rhys, and it's this one right here that says, lore, coffee lover, and fighter for the Promethean workers. So, first, Lore made it seem like a just a random person that he's a brand new character, but actually no. Lore here is actually Lorelei from Borderlands 3. So you don't remember who Lorelei was? They were the Promethean resistance fighter that was working alongside Rhys to drive out the Malawan opposition from out of Promethea, and they were a character that they were confirmed to be non-binary during the events of Borderlands 3. There were several epilogues, though they presented with a female body in Borderlands 3. Throughout most of Borderlands 3's epilogues, you could find out that they were considering transitioning at some point during the events of Borderlands 3. And this was actually elaborated further in Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, where there's a character named Paladin Mike, who is basically Lorelei, but with a masculine body. And of course, the name Paladin Mike is actually referenced to the character Oscar Mike from Battleborn, which was another game that Gearbox created that sadly, unfortunately, shut down last year. I was a big fan of Battleborn. I absolutely loved a lot of characters like that in that. Isaac, Caldarius, of course, Oscar Mike, Whiskey Foxtrot, Reyna. I loved a lot of characters in Battleborn, and so to see that Battleborn sort of lived on through Tiny Tina's Wonderlands in the form of Paladin Mike's character was so super cool. But now it seems as though in the year since Borderlands 3, Lorelei actually finished transitioning and goes by the name Lore now. And we actually get to see a better look at them later on in the trailer. And I really dig their design. I love the mohawk they have and all that, like the face piercings, all that. They really, honestly, I love their design in New Tales in Borderlands compared to how they looked in Borderlands 3. I'm not saying that Lorelei looked bad in Borderlands 3. I just think they look so much better in New Tales in Borderlands. I'm super excited to get to see what happened with them in between the events of Borderlands 3 and New Tales in Borderlands, especially considering if you found some more epilogues, you found as though Zero actually had a crush on Lorelei, which is really, really entertaining considering that Zero ends up actually messing up his whole haiku speech because he gets flustered over seeing Lorelei kill a bunch of Malawan guards. So are Lorelei and Zero dating now in New Tales from the Borderlands? Who knows? But it seems as though they've gone back to being a coffee worker, as we read through a bunch of lore entries back in Borderlands 3. That was what Lorelei did before they became one of Atlas's high-ranking generals with Rhys's army during the events of Borderlands 3. Besides that, though, we get three more important characters. First off, we see Marcus Kincaid, Vaultlander's creator, wins big. So this gives us actually a huge sort of backstory as to what Vaultlanders is all about. We now know that Vaultlanders was created by Marcus, who, of course, if you don't know, is basically the narrator of the entire Borderlands franchise, and he's been appearing throughout several Borderlands games as the bus drivers of each Borderlands game that takes the Vault Hunters in at the beginning of every Borderlands game, with the exception of pre-sequel. So it's unknown if Marcus will actually appear in New Tales from the Borderlands, but it's cool to know that he created Vaultlanders. Maybe as some sort of gimmick to make more money, but we'll see. One scene, though, that is interesting is this article that comes after Marcus, and it's of Digistructing Dream Homes, Rhonda Fulfolga, who is a character we don't really know a lot about, but we actually do see her a bit in this trailer, where she is seen in Fran's portion of the trailer. She comes to visit Fran, basically mocking her for still running her parents' Frogurt stand, and though she states that even though her store was destroyed by Malawan during the events of Borderlands 3 a year prior, she says that she's going to get insurance money from that will make the place look better, though she seems to have sort of a vendetta against Susan Colwell, aka the CEO of Tdor, which doesn't make sense considering it was Malawan that destroyed her Frogurt stand. So maybe somehow, one way or another, either she gets the money and rebuilds her Frogurt stand only to have Tdor destroy it immediately after, or maybe Tdor somehow gets in the way of her getting her insurance money by the fact that they're invading Promethea. Maybe that gets in the way of Fran getting her insurance money for the Frogurt store, so that's why she wants to kill her so badly. Regardless, though, I'm interested to see what her role is going to be in New Tales from the Borderlands, and if she'll just be a minor character here to mock Fran, or if she'll play a larger role in that. The final character that comes to mind in Octavio's section here is this one character after Rhonda, and that is Bivington or Bivington. Weaponry meets bravado. We don't know a lot about this Bivington character. I don't exactly know who they are, but it's interesting that, again, that they're just someone who is on this list of Forge's magazine covers that Octavio is obsessed with, considering the three other characters that have appeared on these magazine covers, Rhys, Marcus, and Lorelei, or I guess four, Rhys, Marcus, Lorelei, and Rhonda, all show up in New Tales from the Borderlands. Who's to say that this Bivington character won't as well? So we'll have to wait and see if this Bivington will play a major role or not in New Tales from the Borderlands. Now, of course, alongside Lorelei and Rhys, who we already talked about earlier in this video, we do have quite a few more characters that show up at the very end of this trailer that basically we're just basically saying, oh, and check out all these other cool new characters that appear in New Tales from Borderlands. The first of which is this character named, I believe his name is Radon. We see him, he's this very, very short man who looks kind of like even miniature Salvador, with some sort of metal plates wrapped over his head like a headband. He literally just looks like a much, much tinier Salvador. He's standing here in front of Louis, who, I gotta say, again, seeing Louis' full body, just wearing the coat over just his more metal body, I absolutely love Louis' design. Super excited to learn more about him and what his deal is. But Radon's design makes me think, is he related to Salvador in some way? Is he maybe a relative of him? Who knows? Because we know Salvador has a pretty big family, and he did make a minor appearance in the Battle Royale DLC for Borderlands 3. So who knows what exactly is up with Radon? Is he just some random wandering on Promethea, or is he related to Salvador? We'll have to wait and see. I'm really excited to find it out. And of course, we move on to Lorelei again. We get another great look at them. I absolutely, again, love their design. Their outfit looks very similar to how it appeared in Borderlands 3, but it's got a lot more of a green design. Instead of the long flowing hair that Lorelei had back in Borderlands 3, they now just have a much shorter green mohawk. I absolutely love it. I super love Lorelei's new design, and I can't wait to see what they do in New Tales from the Borderlands. Considering how they're talking about wanting to like just tell me what to shoot and I'll be good. It looks like they're at Fran's store, and we see a quick change station behind them, and we do know that you'll be able, if you pre-order New Tales from the Borderlands, you'll get special cosmetics for Anu, Octavio, and Fran, and that you'll be able to buy more throughout the course of the game. And the cosmetics I've seen are crazy. They even go harder than the ones that Rhys and Fiona could get in episode 3 of Tales from the Borderlands 1. So I'm interested to see what crazy cosmetics we'll be able to get for Anu, Octavio, and Fran in New Tales from the Borderlands. Hopefully some for Louis as well, because I love to play dress up with him. After Lorelei, though, we move on to this really interesting character called Diamond Danielle, and I don't know what her or their deal is, but again, love their design as well. She has this really white hair. She's got, looks like some sort of teardrop tattoo under her right eye. Her design reminds me a lot, just because I've been watching a lot of Cyberpunk Edgerunners. Her design reminds me a lot of Lucy from Cyberpunk Edgerunners, just with the shirt and design. And she walks up to Louis, basically asking if he's flirting with her, which I don't know if maybe like there is gonna be some sort of romance between Danielle here and Louis, or if that's some sort of misunderstanding. I don't know, but I like Diamond Danielle's character. She reminds me a lot of Violet from The Walking Dead, the final season. So I'm really excited to see more of her, what her deal is. She seems to have some sort of big sniper rifle or some sort of rifle holstered on her back. So maybe this is part of the crew that Anu, Octavio, and Fran are putting together, maybe go after Suzuko while they recruit Lorelei, Diamond Danielle, Louis, Radon, and a bunch of other characters. We'll see. But we'll have to wait and see. And then there's this character. Can we go from Diamond Danielle to Miss Stapleface over here? Now, she seems to be some sort of psycho who may have some sort of ties with the Children of Balls. We see she wears a fragment of a psycho mask over her face, most likely to hide a missing eye that she has. Now, considering this is a year after the events of Borderlands 3, the Children of Vault are no more, the Calypso twins are dead. So, has she maybe gone insane after the deaths of the Calypsos? Maybe she's considered herself to be the new leader of the Children of the Vault. I assume she'll probably be a minor antagonist, maybe even become like an ally, depending on how you make your choices. I feel like she has potential to perhaps maybe be the August of New Tales from the Borderlands. So I'm interested to see what exactly Stapleface's deal is in this. After her, though, we get on to Hank. Now, Hank is a character we actually do know a bit more about, even though this trailer doesn't reveal a lot about him. In a brief 20-minute gameplay demo that was released in New Tales of Borderlands, we find out that Hank is a friend slash work associate with Octavio who just hooks him up with like drugs and other stuff. Though it seems as though that Hank doesn't really like Octavio, but even though Octavio likes hanging around him. So maybe at this point in the trailer, Hank is just fed up with Octavio when he comes to him for help and maybe tries to kill him or something. I'm interested to see, though, what Hank's deal is. He, to me, seems like he's going to be the Finch and Kroger of New Tales of Borderlands, so I'm excited to learn more about him. And then, of course, finally, though, we get our main man, Rhys, confirming once again he is voiced by Ray Chase. And Rhys' design he doesn't look any different at all from Borderlands 3, and that's totally fine by me because I loved Rhys' design in Borderlands 3. Siege mustache and all. He's got his red prosthetic arm. He learns how to tie a tie properly. And it seems as though he's talking with Anu about like some sort of sales pitch. Maybe the gun that Anu is seen holding here is some sort of device that she's created to like stop thing, and she's trying to convince Rhys to get this mass produced, and he seems to be in support of it. The interesting thing here, though, is what is on Rhys' desk. So, of course, just like in Borderlands 3, I pointed this out, actually, in a video I made talking about New Tales of the Borderlands a while back. As you can see, on Rhys' desk, there is a picture of Sasha, the same exact one that you can find on his desk in Borderlands 3. So, that begs the question again, will we hear more about Sasha in New Tales of the Borderlands? We didn't hear about her at all in Borderlands 3. Are we gonna hear more about her and hopefully Fiona in New Tales of the Borderlands? I hope so. Another thing is so interesting here about Rhys' section here is you can see right next to Sasha's picture appears to be like a monitor display showing a sold icon. And if you look really closely, what Rhys just bought is a Zero Vault Lander. And so that is something I'm really excited about. That Zero, apparently, of course, we know Rhys has a total fan crush on Zero to the point where he hired him to work as his personal bodyguard and assassin for Atlas. And that explains why they're so close together during the events of Borderlands 3. So, of course, this now turns into Rhys wanting to get a Vaultlander of Zero. And we can actually see behind Rhys as well, hidden behind the little, like, word thing here of Rhys, is actually Timmy in chair form. So Timmy looks like he turns into quite a comfortable chair actually for Rhys. Just a little side note. I wonder if we'll actually be able to maybe play Rhys in a game of Vaultlanders to see if we can earn the Zero Vaultlander to use throughout the game. I'm sure there's going to be an option where we'll have the option to try and fight Rhys, and by fight I mean loosely, just clash Vaultlanders to try and get the Zero Vaultlander. Maybe this is actually what this is, that we're just trying to beg Rhys to get the Zero Vaultlander. Who knows? But yeah, I'm excited for everything New Tales from the Borderlands has to offer. And there we go. That is everything to know about New Tales from the Borderlands, aka Tales from the Borderlands Season 2, the spin-off slash sequel to 2014 Tales from the Borderlands. Finally, 8 years after Tales from the Borderlands 1, we are getting a semi-sequel starring a brand new cast of characters that further elaborates on the Borderlands universe, and I am so excited for it. This game, we are exactly less than 1 week away from the release of New Tales from the Borderlands, which will be releasing next Friday, October 21st, for Xbox One, Xbox Series X, PS4, PS5, Switch, and PC, exclusively through the Epic Games Store and Steam. Are you guys excited for New Tales from the Borderlands and to jump back into the worlds of Borderlands, seeing it through a brand new eyes, while also hopefully getting some returning ones on the way? If you are excited as I am, be sure to like, comment, and of course subscribe, and I will see you guys later.